What is up, YouTube? Back again. We are putting out a ton of content, so appreciate you guys all for sticking around. If you haven't already, like and subscribe to the channel. We are jumping into my quarterback rankings, my quarterback tiers here today for 2022 fantasy football. As always, like I said, if you haven't liked and subscribed and you're trying to grow your fantasy football knowledge and skills and just win your leagues, subscribe. What are you doing? Subscribe already. And as always, let's hit the intro before we get into this thing. So we are jumping into my quarterback tiers here today, and let us get us started. The quarterback one is going to be Josh Allen. Now, Josh Allen, pretty consensus, the fact that he's my quarterback one. But my quarterback two is Patrick Mahomes. But let me talk about kind of my thinking with both of these guys. Josh Allen, elite rushing upside, elite thrower, put together. All of a sudden, you have the quarterback one. But I'm not going to get a ton of Josh Allen shares because the fact is that Josh Allen's going in the third round. And I'm never an early round quarterback because the difference between Josh Allen to Patrick Mahomes and even all the way down to maybe some of these guys later on my list is only going to be like 30 to 40 points by the end of the season. And granted, yes, 30 to 40 points can win you a few extra leagues because you do need just 1 point to win each and every week. I just think you can get some better value in the third round that helps make your team a little bit more deeper. And so that is why I'm not having a ton of Josh Allen shares. Now, Patrick Mahomes is falling into the fourth round. I've seen him go sometimes around 4 or 5, even later into the fourth round. If he falls really late into the fourth, I think that is definitely a conversation to be had about whether you're going to be able to draft Patrick Mahomes if he is your quarterback too. Now, I know some people are going to debate me. I know Patrick Mahomes is my quarterback too, but the reason he's my quarterback too, the Chiefs are playing in the most high-powered division. Now, I know the guy that everyone's thinking is probably ahead of him is also in the same division. So let's just, you know what, just for the kicks and giggles, let us say that my quarterback 3 is going to be Justin Herbert. So this is going to be a little bit different of a video because usually I go in and I talk about all, each of these guys individually, but we are talking about these guys purely around the fact that we got, of course, Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert playing in the same division. Justin Herbert debatably has better weapons because we're saying Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, but Patrick Mahomes still, Juju Smith-Schuster, Travis Kelce, Sky Moore, MVS, they're going to be playing in shootouts. And I would actually argue that the Chargers defense is better than the Chiefs defense. So I would say that the Chiefs are actually going to be having to play from behind. And what does playing from behind mean? You're throwing the ball a lot more. And when you have one of these elite level quarterbacks who's having to throw the ball and you're not in those early leads, so you're having to throw the ball deep and you're having to engage. Those are some of my thoughts. And that is why I just have Patrick Mahomes as my quarterback 2 over Justin Herbert. Not if you have Justin Herbert over Patrick Mahomes, I'm not going to debate you because, like I said, I think it's such a minute difference. But I think the fact that you're just being able to get Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert typically in the fourth round, that is great value. And if one of these guys falls into the fifth, you just have to take them. Like you just have to. It's the high upside of these guys. All these guys have the QB1 in their total overall outlook. They should if you're drafting them this way. And I'm confident in all 3 of these guys. My quarterback 4, this is where things I think get a little bit dicey because you could debate the main 2 guys that happen to come to me. And when I'm drafting quarterbacks, I'm trying to get these Konami code guys that have the rushing upside. I'm taking Lamar Jackson. And he is not in the trash. We are just grading him up, and I have him in the great category. I think Lamar Jackson, in his range of outcomes, could be the quarterback 1. He's got the rushing upside. Of course, he is like a running back at the quarterback position who also throws the ball. And Lamar Jackson playing with Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman, I think is going to step up this year. I think he's there. It's just last few years he's been dealing with a few injuries that have kept him down. He's still the same MVP like quarterback. I know a lot of teams are starting to figure out exactly what the Ravens are doing, but once they get the ground game going, Lamar Jackson is almost unstoppable. And so it's always interesting, and that's why I have Lamar Jackson as my QB4. If you can get him in the like I said, the end of the 5th round, I typically like that value there for Lamar Jackson. My quarterback 5 is going to be Kyler Murray. Now, don't expect to put him in after Call of Duty comes out because it's proven that he drops about 3 to 4 points per game because he's out there playing the game. But Kyler Murray, elite level option, of course, has that Konami code, rushing upside. He's just a really great quarterback for fantasy. And like I said, we're not talking about these guys as if, are we talking about the greatest of all time, like Tom Brady? No, we're not talking about these guys on that level. We're just talking about their pure fantasy production. And so I am taking Kyler Murray. I know he doesn't have D-Hop, but he's going to be fine for the first 6 weeks with his boy Hollywood Brown being able to chuck the ball deep. Rondale Moore, Zach Ertz. I'm confident in their ability to run the ball, to throw the ball. And Kyler Murray, he's just going to have to do more this year, which is always good because the more he does, the more fantasy points he produces for us. This is where we start to get a little bit interesting because and I'm realizing I did not look through the faces. We're going with Jalen Hurts as our quarterback 6. And I have him, I have him in the great category. It's really close. It's really close that he should maybe not be in the great category. He might just be in the good category, but I'm a big Jalen Hurts believer. All of a sudden, he's got all the weapons, and he might not be the greatest NFL quarterback, but he is a great fantasy quarterback. And last year, he was like the quarterback 6 on a points per game basis. Jalen Hurts had to play from behind. There were so many weeks where all of a sudden Jalen Hurts was at, maybe 4 to 6 fantasy points, but at like halftime, you're like, crap, I should have put X other quarterback into my lineup. And then all of a sudden, fourth quarter rolls around, he's sitting there at like 12 points, and then he puts up like a 20-point quarter, ends with like 32 fantasy points, and you're like, wow, that was crazy because the team was so bad. And I think the Eagles will be better overall as a team, but I don't think they're going to be so much better that they're not going to have to throw the ball. And now he has A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and now Dallas Goedert too. Of course, all three of those guys to be able to catch passes for him. I just think he has that elite rushing upside, and that's why I have him as my quarterback 6, because I am a Bengals truther. I'm a huge Bengals truther, and I have Joe Burrow as my quarterback 7. Now, I just have him in the good category. I think this is the category where he just does not have that rushing upside, and when a quarterback doesn't have a rushing upside, I'm tending to push them down on the board. And the thing is, Joe Burrow is going to go probably before Kyler Murray or Jalen Hurts in your draft. So I'm getting like 0 Joe Burrow in any of my best ball drafts or even in any of my redraft leagues that I'm in with friends or family. But Joe Burrow, of course, plays for the Bengals, throwing the ball to Chase T. Higgins. Solid. I don't even need to harp. Like, he went to the Super Bowl. Dude's a stud. I think eventually he'll go in. He has the ability to become the next Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. Like, he's on that trajectory. Justin Herbert. It's just a matter of what does he do this year? But from a fantasy points perspective, I'm taking him behind Jalen Hurts and Kyler Murray. So my quarterback 8, and this is where you could start to make the case for a lot of different guys. Like, you could make the case. Are you going to say, Russell Wilson? He's a guy. Are you going to say Matthew Stafford? Are you going to say Tom Brady? Tom Brady is always like let down, I'm going Russell Wilson. He's in the good category for me because he goes to the Broncos. They're going to let Russ cook. I think that's the biggest thing. Russell Wilson, when he's allowed to cook, is an elite fantasy football option. And I think this was 2 or 3 years ago. Like I said, I don't have player profile pulled up, so I'm doing all these numbers off the top, and I could be wrong. So go double check me. And that's probably not what I should say, but that's what I'm saying. But Russell Wilson, when he's allowed to cook, top 4, top 5 fantasy points per game. When he's not allowed to cook, we're looking at a quarterback at the 8, 9 fantasy points, 8 to 9 overall for their fantasy points per game as a quarterback. And you just want those guys that have that elite ceiling. And so we haven't necessarily seen that from Russ in the last few years. He's a very solid option. It's just, I think this year he takes that next step with having Javonte Williams in the backfield. He's got a solid running game with him and Melvin Gordon, Cortland Sutton. Tim Patrick's injured, so not Tim Patrick, but Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, and then Albert O. I'm excited for Russ. And I think if they let him actually air the ball out, it's going to be really good for both his fantasy football value and also Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton, big sleeper for me this year, but that is why I have Russ as my quarterback 8. My quarterback 9, and this is where we start to I just think you have to put Tom Brady. And I have him as mid. Maybe I shouldn't have him mid. He's the GOAT to me. He's the greatest quarterback of all time. Dude performs. As a 45-year-old, what is he going to constantly being able to put up? I mean, granted, Mike Evans, Julio Jones, Chris Godwin, like abundance of riches there for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. So maybe this is way too low, but I'm taking Tom Brady as what did we just say? My quarterback 9. Maybe not going to be able to draft him because maybe he's going to be going ahead of Russ. And I think it's great value. And this is another reason, like these quarterbacks, like the minute difference between Tom Brady, even all the way up to Jalen Hurts, is not going to be enough fantasy points for me not to just punt the quarterback position and wait for Tom Brady to fall to me. I just like when we're talking about these guys on a who's who and we're debating that. That's why I have Tom Brady. He's not mid at all. He's a pretty good fantasy quarterback, but I just think if we're looking at tiers, that is how I have him. My quarterback 10 this year is going to be Trey Lance. Now, Trey Lance has proven absolutely zero, zilch, nada, proven nothing. But he has that Konami code upside. This is the same type of thing we were looking at Jalen Hurts last year. When you're looking at Lamar Jackson a few years before, when you have this like high rushing quarterback that's super athletic with the ability to get outside the pocket, and they're playing in a great defense or a great offense with a great head coach, Kyle Shanahan's going to figure out exactly how to use Trey Lance, and I'm excited. I'm really excited to see what he does. Now, I'm nervous, of course. If you haven't checked already, I posted my tight end video earlier today, and so I'm a little bit nervous about how is that going to affect Debo? How's that going to affect Brandon Ayuk? How's that going to affect George Kittle? Because we haven't seen a Trey Lance type quarterback come into that offense who's able to do so much themselves. How is that going to impact the target share and the yards down the field? I just think they're going to be able to air the ball out a lot longer. So I do think it's probably going to benefit Brandon Ayuk a whole lot. And I think it's going to benefit Trey Lance from a fantasy football perspective. I think at the end of the year, when we're looking, Trey Lance is currently going anywhere between the 8th to 9th to 10th round, depending on what type of league you're playing in and how smart your league mates are with punting on quarterback, waiting on quarterback. But Trey Lance has that upside, I think, to eventually win you your fantasy football league. And so I think putting him above like a guy like a Matthew Stafford or like a Dak Prescott, like I think that is bold, but I think we're just talking about that floor. Like, we don't care how good of an actual real life quarterback Trey Lance is. We just care about the fantasy football points. And I think Trey Lance has the recipe to become a really great fantasy football quarterback. But that is why I have him as my quarterback 10. I know there's like a ton of analysts that are like, Trey Lance is my quarterback 7. Like, I'm taking him ahead of Joe Burrow. And like, that's bold. That's just bold to me. And until I see it with my real eyes, and I'm just taking the discount, take the discount. I can argue that Joe Burrow is probably supposed to be ranked ahead of Trey Lance, but I don't have to because I can just wait on Trey Lance and he'll be my QB1. But I get him in the 10th round and I'm able to draft in the 5th, 6th, and 7th round, get wide receivers, running backs, tight ends there that really help my team accelerate to that next level. So my quarterback 11, and it's going to say below average and below average here, but they're not below average. My quarterback 11 is going to be Matthew Stafford. We're a little bit nervous about this whole elbow thing. So I don't necessarily know what the diagnostic is. I know fantasy doctors are talking about the chance that maybe it affects him the whole season. Like, should I be taking, Justin Jefferson ahead of Cooper Kupp? Like, all those kind of like crazy questions that happen. Like, Matthew Stafford's a stud. They're going to air the ball out. Excited for Cooper Kupp and Allen Robinson this season. And we're just going to have to see. But Matthew Stafford, very solid quarterback option. If he's your starter, like, cool. Like, you waited and you got a very, 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 very solid quarterback 11. But I think he's kind of going off the board at like quarterback 9 to quarterback 11. So just kind of depends. And we are kind of just this video is very long. So if you stayed here till the end, appreciate all you guys for staying here as well. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. We're trying to grow this channel and appreciate you guys being here, putting out more content like this every day. We're going to be doing waiver wire ads, talking trades, talking all starts and sits during the season. And we also go live almost every night. So appreciate you guys being here. My quarterback 12 is going to be Dak Prescott. The only reason Dak's lower than some of these other guys is the fact that Dak has really stopped running the ball the last few years. He has become more of a pocket passer, kind of started to fold into that Russell Wilson. We haven't seen him scramble mode, which lowers his overall total ceiling. And then, of course, the fact that Amari Cooper left the team this year and Michael Gallup's recovering from injury. You have CeeDee Lamb, Dalton Schultz. I'm a little bit nervous about Dak. I think he's just a very solid late end quarterback 1, nothing more. Now, I think Dak's going to probably be going ahead of Tom Brady, ahead of Matthew Stafford, ahead of Trey Lance. And so I'm not going to be getting a lot of Dak. But like I said, you're going to be playing for upside. So if you agree with all these takes, let me know. If there's someone that you're like, man, that guy is too low, I would prefer someone else. Let me know. But I appreciate all you guys for tuning in. Like I said so much. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, subscribe. What are you doing? Help me out. I help you. You help me. But I appreciate everyone for being here, and I will catch you guys on that next video.